The girl who publicly body shamed me makes her living selling my transformation photos, and I'm expected to endorse it. I still remember the exact moment it happened. The fluorescent lights of the high school hallway buzzing overhead, the scent of cheap cleaning solution mingling with too strong cologne from a pack of upperclassmen boys, and the loud, echoing sound of Heather's voice ringing out as if she wanted the entire world to hear. "Look out, here comes the human blimp," she said, loud enough that every head turned. I felt every pair of eyes land on me, felt the floor beneath my feet tilt, felt a humiliating flush creep across my cheeks. It felt like a punch, the kind of verbal blow so unexpected and so jarring that you can't respond. I was just standing there with my backpack half zipped in the middle of that hallway, wanting to vanish. My cheeks burned. My eyes stung. My heart drummed a frantic beat in my ears. But I didn't cry, not there, not in front of them. I managed to walk away, head down, my throat closed up so tight I couldn't swallow. Inside, though, it was as if something cracked. Heather was one of those girls who seemed born into confidence, tall, lean, always dressed in the newest styles, always flanked by a gaggle of admirers. Even teachers seemed to tiptoe around her, responding to that aura of popularity and intimidation. She could cut someone down with an arched brow and a smirk, but often she didn't bother with subtlety. She was known for her scathing wit, for picking out the vulnerabilities of anyone who dared cross her path. And I was, tragically, an easy target. Short, a little awkward, carrying extra weight that I'd begun putting on in middle school. It felt like nature had dropped me in front of Heather with a neon sign reading, "Make fun of me, I won't fight back." From that day forward, she never missed a chance to humiliate me. Sometimes the jabs were open and loud remarks about my body in the cafeteria line, mocking my lunch choices. Other times they were more underhanded. Notes taped to my locker that said things like, "Maybe skip dessert for a while," or "You'd be cute if you dropped 50 pounds. At the time, I didn't have the tools or the confidence to stand up for myself. I swallowed the pain. I tried to avoid her. I changed which staircases I used so I wouldn't have to pass her and her friends. I spent my lunch breaks hiding in the library or outside near the teacher's parking lot. My friends tried to help me cope, but we were all just kids and no one wanted to draw Heather's fire. That year, it got so bad that I dreaded waking up on weekdays. Every morning, my stomach knotted, and I'd pray I could just get through the day without her noticing me. When she did notice me, she could be scathing. Once she cornered me outside the gym, holding up her phone to snap a photo of me from a low angle. The next day, rumors flew around that she'd posted it online with a caption like, "Hungry, hungry hippo." The entire thing left me feeling helpless, ashamed, furious, but mostly helpless. I remember slumping against my bedroom wall, tears slipping down my cheeks, wishing I could be anyone else. I felt ugly, gross, worthless. My grades slipped. My parents were confused about why I was so withdrawn, but I never told them about Heather in detail, just said I hated school. I thought if I could keep my head down until graduation, I'd survive. And I did, in a sense. I graduated. I left that school behind, left Heather behind. I headed to college 2 states away, determined to start over. For a while, though, her voice stayed with me, lodging in my head, replaying every time I looked in a mirror or stepped on a scale. It took me years to realize that the shame she'd made me feel wasn't something I owed her. She was just a cruel person with her own issues, and I was the scapegoat she'd latched onto. But as a teenager, you can't parse that so easily. College was a turning point. I found friends who didn't care about my weight. They cared about me, my sense of humor, my interests, my kindness. Over time, I started to realize that I could shape my life in ways I wanted. I started going to the campus gym sporadically, not with the goal of losing weight so much as wanting to see what my body could do if I was kinder to it. I joined a recreational hiking group, discovering that being outdoors made me feel strong in ways I never had before. My weight wasn't the central focus at first, but as I started moving my body more, my relationship with food shifted from an emotional escape to something more mindful. My dorm had a communal kitchen, so my roommate and I experimented with cooking meals instead of just ordering pizza. The changes were gradual. Over a year, I dropped some weight. Over the next year, a bit more. But more importantly, I built confidence. I realized the best revenge on someone like Heather was living well, being happy, and not letting her define me. By the time I finished my degree, I'd shed a significant amount of weight, maybe 60 or 70 pounds overall, but it took 4 years, not some miraculous overnight transformation. And I want to stress, the weight loss itself wasn't the sole reason I felt better. It was that I no longer hated my body. I no longer felt like it was a prison or a sign of my failures. I no longer let the memory of Heather's insults shape my self-worth. I loved that I could go hiking for miles without feeling winded, that I could jog a few laps on the track, that I had more energy. Friends who'd known me freshman year told me the bigger change was my demeanor, my posture. I held my head higher, joked more easily, joined clubs, made a ton of new connections. In short, I thrived. After college, I moved to a mid-sized city, found a job in a marketing firm, and on the side, I started a blog. The blog, ironically, was about self-care, self-acceptance, and a gentle approach to fitness. I posted photos occasionally, ones of me hiking, me cooking healthy meals, just to illustrate that it was possible to incorporate exercise and better eating without punishing yourself or giving in to crash diets. I never named Heather or went into the gory details of high school bullying, but I did mention that I'd once been body shamed. I got a small following, mostly folks who appreciated the realistic approach. Over time, I refined that blog, posted more regularly, and ended up with a modest but dedicated audience. It wasn't my main job, but it was a passion project that let me connect with people who'd gone through similar struggles. Flash forward to my late 20s. I'm fairly content. I have a decent apartment, a stable job, a circle of good friends, a blog that grows slowly but steadily. I hadn't thought of Heather in years, aside from the occasional nightmare where I was back in that hallway, hearing her shrill laugh. Then, one random night, I'm out at a local bar for a friend's birthday, standing near the bar, waiting for a refill of seltzer, when a voice says, "Oh my God, is that you?" I turn and it's her, Heather. My mind blanks for a second as I try to place her face. She looks older. Sure, but the same bone structure, same smug tilt to her lips, same carefully highlighted hair. She's wearing a sleek outfit, exuding the same confidence that used to terrify me. Instantly, I feel my palms grow sweaty, my heart picking up the old, familiar, anxious beat. She's smiling, but it's the kind of smile that makes me uneasy. She says my name in a tone that suggests we're best friends reuniting, as though the last time we spoke wasn't her calling me a beached whale or something equally terrible. I stammer out a hello, not quite sure how to respond. She gushes, "You look amazing. I almost didn't recognize you." That phrase, while seemingly complimentary, stings because it implies the old me was unrecognizable or something to be pitied. Still, I force a polite nod, say thanks. She launches into a quick update. Apparently, she started her own marketing and branding business after college, has a small agency, does influencer campaigns, that sort of thing. Then she prods at my job, my life, and I answer in clipped sentences, trying to be civil but not revealing too much. Eventually, she suggests we exchange info. She's always looking for new collaborators, she says. I hesitate, but in the swirl of confusion, I hand her my business card. She hands me hers, a glossy rectangle with her name, Heather, CEO of Starrise Marketing, or some equally pretentious label. She insists we catch up properly soon. I walk away from that bar with my stomach in knots, already regretting giving her my card. For a while, nothing happens. I half expect an email from her, but none arrives, so I figure maybe we'll remain a weird footnote in each other's lives. Then, out of the blue, I get a direct message on my blog's contact form from Heather. She's raving about how impressed she is with my blog, praising my writing, my photos, my transformation story. She calls it powerful and marketable. That last word sets off alarms in my head. She says she wants to meet about a potential partnership that could help me monetize my brand. I'm wary, but curious. Maybe she's changed, grown into a nicer person. Maybe I can calmly hear her out, then politely decline if it's not right. So I email back, agreeing to meet at a coffee shop in a public place. When we meet, she's all enthusiasm. She explains she's built a niche marketing platform that pairs real-life success stories with brands that want authenticity. She sees me as the perfect candidate for a health and lifestyle brand push. She says, imagine a big brand noticing my blog, paying me to represent them, and in return, I get a chunk of the profits, more exposure, etc. She emphasizes that with my before and after photos, we can craft a compelling narrative. I bristle a bit because I never wanted to be a poster child for weight loss products. My journey was personal, self-driven, not reliant on some miracle pill or diet. She nods, says I can keep my message pure, but that sponsor money would help me grow. She throws out figure estimates that sound large, though probably exaggerated. I try to remain neutral, saying, I'm not sure. She drops subtle references to how in high school we had our differences, but we're adults now, we can bury the hatchet. I feel a swirl of conflicting emotions. A part of me wants to unleash years of pent-up anger, call her out on her cruelty. Another part just wants to escape. So I politely say I'm not interested in commercializing my personal story at this time. I thank her and leave. I think that's the end of it. But 2 months later, I start noticing something odd. My blog traffic spikes and I see referral links from weird sites. Then an acquaintance messages me, "Hey, is this you in this ad?" She sends a screenshot of an online ad featuring my old before photo on the left, my after photo on the right, with a sensational headline like, "She lost 60 pounds in 6 months using one weird trick." My heart plummets. I never gave permission for my photos to be used in an ad, especially not for a weird trick diet scam. Then I see more. Some are ads for detox teas, some for diet pills, some for miracle cleanses, all featuring my pictures, some of which I only posted to my private social media or in closed weight loss support groups. The text is cringeworthy. Learn how this woman overcame obesity and found her dream body in record time. They misrepresent my story entirely. Worse, I'm being used to shill for products I've never tried, never would try, because they go against everything I stand for. I do some investigating, clicking through the ads, tracing them back to affiliate sites. It's messy, with layers of shell websites, but eventually I spot a mention of Heather's marketing agency. Some disclaimers or footers reference Star Rise Marketing. My stomach turns. She's behind this. She must have pulled my photos from my blog or my social media. Some might even be from back in high school. I contact her immediately, furious. She responds with a breezy, "Oh, honey, calm down. The ads are just placeholders. If you sign with me officially, we can refine the message. But for now, I had to show potential sponsors that you're the real deal." My jaw drops. She's basically using me as a test subject, throwing my pictures around to snag deals, all without my consent. I'm livid. I tell her to remove them immediately, that she has no right. She claims that since I posted them publicly, they're fair game. I know that's not how copyright or image rights work, but I can't afford a top-tier lawyer to chase down every site. She's banking on that. Then the emails start pouring in from my blog readers, confused about why I'm endorsing these questionable diet products. Some are angry, saying they thought I believed in balanced living. Some are supportive, asking if I've been hacked. My reputation is taking a hit. People on social media are calling me a sellout, a liar. Heather, in the meantime, is telling me that if I want to clear up the confusion, I should just come on board, do an official endorsement, and then we can shape the narrative properly. She's effectively blackmailing me. Work with me, or I'll keep selling your photos to the highest bidder. I feel sick with deja vu, like I'm back in high school, pinned under her cruelty, powerless to stop it. I consider shutting down my blog, disappearing from social media entirely, hoping that if I vanish, the ads will eventually fade. But that feels like letting her win. Also, my blog is dear to me. I help people there share real stories of self-acceptance. It's become part of my identity. So I start looking for a legal route. I consult a lawyer friend who says it's tricky. Suing Heather for misappropriation of likeness is possible, but it could be expensive and she might drag it out. Plus, those ads might be getting syndicated by third-party networks outside the country, making enforcement hard. We can try a cease and desist letter, but Heather might ignore it or find loopholes. I send the letter anyway, a strongly worded demand that she remove all my images from her campaigns and ads. She responds in an email that reads almost mocking. "We both know you'll do better if you just partner with me. Let's not waste time. I can make you a star, sweetie." The use of sweetie makes my skin crawl, reminding me of how she used to smirk in high school. Now, I'm angry enough to push back publicly. I decide to write a blog post detailing the situation, without naming Heather's business on my lawyer's advice, but calling out a former bully who's now exploiting my photos. I explained to my audience that I am not endorsing any of these diet products or miracle cures, that these ads are unauthorized, that the person behind them is ignoring my rights. The post goes semi-viral among body positive circles. People start leaving negative comments on the social media pages of Star Rise Marketing, calling them out for shady tactics. Heather tries damage control, claiming I'm making a fuss over nothing, that she's offering me an opportunity. The tension escalates. A few days later, I'm at a local wellness expo, something I agreed to do months before, giving a talk about mindful fitness. As I'm chatting with some attendees at my table, guess who shows up? Heather, gliding across the expo floor in heels, carrying a stack of glossy flyers. She greets me with that same saccharine tone, complimenting me on my talk. Then she leans in to whisper, "This is a perfect place for you to announce your collaboration with me. Think how many potential customers are here." I stiffen, telling her I have no collaboration. She just smiles. Then, to my horror, she steps up to the microphone at a break in the schedule. Apparently she's a sponsor or something, introduces herself, and starts talking about real transformations and how she's proud to have found a shining example in our very own local influencer. People glance my way. She calls my name, inviting me to join her on stage. I'm caught off guard, but I walk up, forcing a composed expression. She publicly invites me to be the face of her new product line. I stare at her, then at the crowd, and say calmly, "I'm sorry, but I'm not partnering with you or endorsing your products." The crowd seems confused. Heather tries to laugh it off, saying I'm shy or we're finalizing details. I hold the microphone firmly and say, "No. She's been using my photos without my permission. I am not associated with Star Rise Marketing." Murmurs spread through the audience. Heather's face darkens. She quickly ends the segment, but people are left with questions. That night, she sends me a text so venomous it's almost scary. "You ungrateful cow. I tried to help you. Remember how worthless you used to be? I'm giving you a platform you don't deserve, and you spit in my face. You'll regret this." My hands shake reading it. She might threaten a defamation suit or continue to sabotage me. I document everything, show it to my lawyer, who says we could get a restraining order if the threats continue. But we hold off, hoping to handle it through a civil route. The next day, I receive an email from a big diet brand with the subject line, "Partnership Inquiry." I open it, curious. They say they saw me in some advertisements that Star Rise Marketing provided, and they want to clarify if I'm available for an ambassador role. They mention a large potential payout. I realize how deeply Heather's infiltration goes. She's sold my transformation story all around. I respond politely, letting them know those ads are unauthorized, that I have no affiliation with Star Rise. They apologize, sounding embarrassed. But it's yet another example of how Heather's been peddling my images everywhere, which means I have to keep stamping out these fires one by one. At this point, my emotional state is in free fall. The stress is reigniting old insecurities I thought I'd buried. I have nightmares of high school hallways again. My appetite wavers. I find myself crying some nights, furious that Heather can still wreak havoc on my life. But something in me has changed since high school. I'm not the same scared kid. I have allies now. My readers rally behind me, flooding Star Rise Marketing's social media with demands to stop using my images. A few bigger body-positive influencers pick up the story, criticizing Heather's unethical tactics. The public pressure grows. Heather tries to spin it, claiming I'm just a disgruntled ex-friend or that I actually signed a contract, which is a lie. But the backlash intensifies. She starts losing sponsors. Some big influencer calls her out by name, citing the evidence we posted. Heather's brand begins to tarnish. Yet she doubles down, and I start seeing even more unscrupulous ads with my face, possibly as a last-ditch attempt to profit before the ship sinks. I talked to a journalist from a local online magazine, sharing the entire story, my high school bullying experience, my personal weight loss journey, how Heather used my pictures without consent, how she tried to force me into endorsing her brand. The journalist is appalled. She publishes a lengthy feature, Bullied Then Exploited, one woman's fight against her high school tormentor turned CEO. It goes viral locally, then picks up steam elsewhere. People are outraged. They can't believe the gall of someone who once body shamed me is now making money off the body she insulted. The public outcry becomes a bigger PR nightmare for Heather than she can handle. Finally, we get a break. One of the major diet pill companies decides to cut ties with Heather's agency, citing negative publicity. They also forward us copies of the licensing agreement she used to supply them with my images. That document is a goldmine for my lawyer, as it proves she sold them photos that clearly belong to me without any signed release. My lawyer quickly files a lawsuit, armed with that evidence, plus the messages and texts showing she threatened me. We request damages for unauthorized usage of my likeness, plus emotional distress. The online coverage turns sympathetic toward me, calling her out for unethical exploitation. Suddenly, Heather is on the defensive. She tries to release a statement saying it was all a misunderstanding, that she believed I'd given implied consent. My lawyer counters with evidence that I explicitly refused multiple times. The legal proceedings drag on for a few months. During this time, I lean heavily on my support network, my close friends, my sister, even acquaintances who reach out with solidarity. I attend every court hearing, head held high. Heather appears with a rotating cast of attorneys, but her confidence has visibly cracked. She tries to settle out of court, offering me a modest sum and a gag order. I refuse, wanting a formal apology and a guarantee she'll remove all my pictures, plus restitution that acknowledges the damage done. In the end, under mounting public scrutiny and the weight of our evidence, she concedes. She agrees to a settlement, a formal apology posted on her website and social media, a sum of money that helps cover my legal fees and some compensation, and a binding agreement to never use my images or name again without an official contract that I sign. That day in court, when the settlement is finalized, I feel an odd mixture of triumph and sadness. I see Heather at the far side of the courtroom, not making eye contact. I wonder if she ever truly regrets what she did, both in high school and now. Perhaps she does, but she's not the type to show it. We don't speak. We don't need to. The judge signs off on the agreement and it's over. She's forced to remove my pictures from all her campaigns, to issue a statement retracting her claims that I endorsed her brand. The apology is brief and businesslike, but it's there in writing. She misused my images. She was wrong. I can't help but recall all those times she made me cry in high school. Now I'm the one with validation that she was in the wrong, not me. In the aftermath, I feel a weight lifting. Sure, some ads might still linger in the bowels of the internet, but legally and publicly, she's done. My blog readers and social media followers rally with congratulatory messages. The local media covers the story as a cautionary tale about personal image rights and unethical marketing. Heather's agency takes a hit in credibility. Some of her clients jump ship. I hear rumors she might be rebranding under a different name, but at least she can't touch my story again. With that chapter closing, I reflect on how surreal it was to go from high school bullying victim to a woman forced to battle the same bully, now wearing a professional CEO suit. In a twisted sense, Heather never stopped bullying me. Her methods just evolved from teenage insults to adult exploitation. But I also realize how different I am now. I'm not that scared sophomore who'd run to the bathroom to cry. I stood up to her, took legal action, used my voice, found allies, and refused to let her profit from my pain. In that sense, I won something bigger than a settlement. I reclaimed my narrative. Some might wonder if all this drama changed my stance on body positivity or my blog. Truthfully, it deepened my commitment to it. My experience became an even stronger reminder of how important it is to own our narratives, to champion healthy, honest approaches instead of letting bullies or scammers define us. On my blog, I wrote a long, heartfelt post about the entire ordeal, not just the lawsuit, but the emotional roller coaster. I also talked about the complexities of forgiveness. I don't claim I've forgiven Heather, maybe one day, but right now I'm content knowing I no longer carry her shame or her insults. That weight is off me. Sometimes I wonder if she ever found happiness. In high school, bullies often come from a place of insecurity or needing control. Did she ever get therapy? Did she ever realize how much harm she caused? People ask if I'd meet with her in private to talk. I doubt it. There's nothing left to say. The settlement and apology were the final word on that. My focus now is on building something positive, continuing my blog, possibly writing a book about the entire journey from bullied teen to body positive advocate to legal warrior. Maybe it'll resonate with others who face online exploitation or who struggle to stand up to old ghosts. Sometimes I recall that first moment in 10th grade when she called me the human blimp in front of half the student body. It stings, even all these years later, but it also underscores how far I've come. The same voice that mocked me for my body ended up trying to co-opt that body's transformation for profit. That's the kind of irony you'd expect in a bad comedy. Only it was real. But ironically, it also gave me a stage to speak out about body shaming, forced me to break old patterns of silence. In that sense, it might be the final karmic flip. She inadvertently gave me a platform to do good. I still get anxious sometimes, worried about leftover ads or negative trolls. But the large wave of negativity has ebbed. I have a robust community around me, people who know the truth. And personally, I have closure. I look in the mirror whether I'm heavier or lighter at any given time and see someone who overcame a bully not once, but twice. That's a quiet sort of power. My body is my own, my story is my own, and no one can force me to endorse anything I don't believe in. A few months after the settlement, I'm invited to speak at a local women's empowerment conference about owning your story in the digital age. I step onto a small stage in front of maybe 100 attendees, and I tell them the condensed version, how a high school bully reappeared years later, used my weight loss photos as a commodity, and how I fought back. I share the lessons I learned about boundaries, legal rights, and the strength of community support. A hush falls over the room as I describe the emotional toll, the flashbacks, the sense of being a teenager again, powerless. But then I talk about how I refused to cave, how I found the resources, both legal and emotional, to confront her. How ultimately I turned the narrative around. I see women in the audience nodding, some with tears in their eyes. Afterward, a line forms of people wanting to thank me, share their own experiences, ask for advice. I realize I've found a new purpose, encouraging others to defend their bodies, their images, their stories from bullies or exploiters. Walking out of that conference hall, I feel a warmth in my chest. This is what healing can look like, turning trauma into empathy, turning bitterness into resolve. Heather might still be out there, maybe regrouping, maybe pulling some other shady tactic in a different city. But in my life, she no longer looms as an unbeatable force. She's just a sad example of how cruelty can persist if not challenged, and how it can be beaten back if you stand firm. And so, to anyone who sees my pictures out there, yes, those before and after shots that once circulated in shady ads, I want them to know they were never meant to sell quick fix products. They were snapshots of my personal evolution, from a bullied teen struggling with self-worth to a woman who learned to cherish her own well-being and found healthier habits. If those photos belong anywhere, it's in my own story, shared on my terms, or maybe in an uplifting project that I personally believe in. That's what Heather never understood, that a body is not a commodity, and a personal journey is not a marketing ploy to be hijacked for profit. My transformation was never about her approval. It was about my life, my choices, my healing. No one can take that away now. Sometimes people ask me if I regret posting my photos online at all. Maybe in a perfect world, I could have kept them private, safe from unscrupulous marketing campaigns, but I refuse to hide out of fear. Sharing my pictures helped me connect with people who found inspiration or solace in my journey. Hiding them would let the bullies and the thieves win. Instead, I continue to share carefully, watermarked and with disclaimers maybe, but I still share. Because in the end, my story belongs to me, not to the Heathers of the world. Life moves on. I keep blogging, keep doing speaking engagements, keep living my day-to-day with friends and family. My marketing job is steady. I even got a promotion, ironically, for my ability to handle crisis communications after dealing with my own fiasco. Some nights, I still dream of that high school hallway, but the nightmares are fewer. And in them, I'm no longer silent, no longer helpless. I look Heather in the eye and say, stop. And in the dream, she does. One weekend, I go back to my hometown for a visit, rummaging through old yearbooks and mementos in my childhood bedroom, thinking about how far I've come. I flip through a yearbook, see pictures of Heather leading a pep rally, me in the background, face half hidden. It strikes me how the seeds of our dynamic were visible even then. Her center stage, me on the periphery. I close the yearbook gently. I don't hate her. I hate what she did. But I don't harbor that old bitterness anymore. She's just a person, flawed, maybe never learning empathy. She can't hurt me now. As I drive away from my hometown, I realize something crucial. I'm free. Free from her insults, free from her exploitation, free from her shadow. The memory of being called the human balloon no longer defines me, nor does the memory of her trying to blackmail me into endorsing her brand. I define myself, my successes, my struggles, my message, and that's all I ever wanted, to be the author of my own life, not a tragic side character in hers. In an odd twist of fate, the entire ordeal left me with a bigger platform than ever. My blog's readership soared after the story went public. I get messages from people around the world who share their own experiences with bullies or with unauthorized use of their images. Some are tearful, some angry, but they all express relief at finding someone who fought back. I do my best to respond, to encourage them to seek legal advice, to remind them that no one has the right to profit from their bodies or stories without consent. It's become a crusade of sorts, not something I planned, but something I embrace. If I can help even one person avoid the sense of powerlessness I felt, it's worth it. Occasionally, there's a twinge of sadness that it had to get so ugly that it required public showdowns and lawsuits. But sometimes you have to drag bullies into the light. In high school, I never had that chance. I felt small, alone. As an adult, I had the resources, the community, and the inner strength to stand up and say no. And I did. A year after the lawsuit ends, I'm invited to a women's health expo in a neighboring city to give a keynote speech. The organizer says my story resonates with so many, someone who overcame body shaming and then overcame further exploitation in adulthood. The day of the event, I stand backstage, heart fluttering with anticipation. The room is packed. I step out, greet the audience, and begin by sharing a bit of my teen years. The bullying, the self-doubt, the slow, patient changes I made. Then I transitioned to the adult chapter, how that same bully re-entered my life, tried to co-opt my achievements, and how I refused to let her. I see nods, tears, gasps. When I finish, the applause is thunderous. People line up to speak to me afterward, wanting to hug me, share their own traumas, thank me for giving them hope. I realize in that moment that ironically, Heather's final attempt to use me became the catalyst for me to become a voice of empowerment for others. That's a redemption of sorts. Driving home that evening, I reflect on the strangeness of it all. The girl who once called me horrific names in front of the entire school is now known in local circles as the unethical marketer who lost a big lawsuit. People see her as a cautionary tale of how cruelty can backfire. Meanwhile, I, the once human balloon, have found a measure of happiness, self-love, and purpose. Life can be poetic sometimes. A few months after that, I receive an email from an unknown address. It's brief, no greeting, just a single line, "I'm sorry for what I date." My mind reels. Is this actually from Heather? Is she sincere or just trying to tie up loose ends? I stare at it for a long time, not sure how to respond. In the end, I decide that if it's genuine, she'll find a better way to apologize than a cryptic email. So I delete it. It feels like the final door closing. I don't need her apology to heal, but I suppose it's some sign she might have regrets. Either way, I'm done giving her space in my head. In the final analysis, the moral of my story, if there is one, might be that bullies can evolve shifting tactics, but we can evolve too. We can learn to stand up for ourselves, to turn the tables. I used to think of Heather as an unstoppable force, but time and self-growth changed that dynamic. And while it was painful to have my transformation photos stolen and misused, it forced me to stand firm, to believe in my own voice. I showed myself and the world that I am more than just a before and after statistic. I'm a full human being with a story, a voice, and rights no one can trample on. So if anyone out there stumbles upon my before and after pictures floating around the internet, now you know the real context. They aren't a promise of quick fixes or an endorsement of some detox tea. They're part of my life's journey, one marked by initial shame, subsequent growth, the reappearance of an old foe, and ultimately a reaffirmation of my worth. If you see them, I hope they serve not as a marketing ploy, but as a reminder that no matter who tries to claim or rewrite your narrative, you can reclaim it. You can push back. Today, I continue writing my blog, focusing less on the details of weight loss and more on the holistic side of self-care, mental health, boundaries, healthy relationships with food, physical activity, and above all, self-compassion. My audience understands that transformation is never just about losing pounds. Why? It's about shedding the weight of other people's judgments, the weight of shame, the weight of old wounds. I'm transparent about how I'm still a work in progress. Some weeks I struggle, some weeks I flourish, but I do it on my own terms. Not because a brand is paying me to hold up a product or sign a script. In quiet moments, I think back to that hallway. I see Heather's triumphant sneer. I see the teenage me, heart pounding, tears threatening, feeling like my world was collapsing. I wish I could put a hand on that girl's shoulder, tell her, hang in there. One day you'll find your strength and none of these insults will define you. But life doesn't give us do-overs. We only move forward, carrying lessons. And maybe I needed those trials to become who I am, a woman who knows the sting of humiliation, who's walked through legal and emotional battles, who's come out the other side more empathetic, more determined. I keep a single photograph from my high school days taped to a journal, a group shot from a pep rally where I'm off to the side, clearly not the star, definitely heavier, and not smiling fully. It reminds me of my roots, how far I've traveled, literally and metaphorically. It reminds me that inside that heavier body was a person who deserved love, respect, and dignity. She just didn't get it from people like Heather, but she got it from herself, eventually, and that made all the difference. Sometimes I get messages from random strangers who say they used to be bullies themselves, or they used to be victims, or they're just learning to set boundaries. They ask for advice. I tell them my story is unique, but also universal. We all face folks who want to diminish us. We all have to fight in our own way to keep our stories ours. My fight was with Heather, but your fight could be with a relative, a boss, an ex, anyone who tries to define you in a way that robs you of agency. The important part is not letting them succeed. And if they manage to strike a blow, finding the courage to strike back or to rebuild. In the end, I didn't just survive Heather's bullying or her adult exploitation of my images. I thrived in spite of it. I turned each confrontation into a building block for my self-assurance, even if it took tears, sleepless nights, and legal help. That's the story behind my before and after pictures. It's not about a diet, not about a brand, not about endorsing a product. It's about shedding the shame that was heaped on me and learning to see myself as worthy, as powerful, as free. And I hope that resonates more than any slick marketing campaign ever could. Because real transformation, the kind that lasts, doesn't come in a pill or from a bully's insults. It comes from deciding you won't live as someone else's victim or puppet. It's messy, it's slow, it's full of setbacks, but it's also beautiful. And it belongs to you alone. No one has the right to steal or monetize that. If they try, you fight back with every resource you can muster. I did. And I'm still standing, not as the after, but as an evolving person who's finally found her own voice, her own worth, and her own pride. That is the real transformation. And no bully, past, present, or future, can take it from me ever again.